A very obvious auction, a failed auction here. So you can see that we get a failed auction there. So we've got this supply coming in here. And obviously you can see that the auction from the bottom edge was toxic. But because this is a failed auction, this price should get tested. Will get tested if it was fast enough. It's quite a slow auction to the downside though, isn't it? Because it's a slow auction to the downside, you're expecting this to be a buy trade here because you're not expecting it to be a buy trade above it because the failed auction was here. There's supply coming in. So you expect the buy trade to be below that price, and it is below that price. Now remember, this means that there is weakness coming in because this was not a toxic auction to the downside. Look how thin these supply areas are. Do you see how thin those supply areas are? Weakness. You cannot buy it when it's dropping though, can you? You cannot be a buyer when this is dropping because guess what? What are you doing? Can you answer one of the questions? Are you trading towards that weakness or away from that weakness? Well, on the way down, you're trading away from the weakness. So if I wanted to buy this, I would have to come in with a buy trade here, wouldn't I? Or a buy trade against one of these two leans. I'd have to come in with a buy trade in this area here. Now I'm trading towards weakness, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do. As we trade into this area here, you'll notice that the candles become significantly smaller. But we did accelerate into this auction here. So on that basis, if we accelerate into the prior auction, then what we do expect is a sell-side auction coming in afterwards. In other words, a market maker's auction. Well, what I imagine Reeve has seen then is he's looked at this and says, well, wait a minute. So realistically, I'm going to take that box there and I'm going to add it to this box here. And I reckon that there's going to be a market maker's auction to this price here. It's amazing how accurate this process is. So when you see it market making to this auction, and it's quite obvious that it is a market is getting made into that auction compared to what happened from here to here, where it's quite clearly not getting made. In other words, there's a big imbalance of price action here. So this is quite clearly getting made into the auction at the top edge. So when the big lean comes in, can I sell it? No, because at that stage, immediately you're still very, very weak at that stage. If you're very aggressive, you can sell it, absolutely. But what Reeve basically waited for was he waited to see whether this is going to be a market make auction back towards this price here. Would that be reasonable, Reeve? Because if it's a market make auction back to this price, it's going to be bullish for a continuation higher, right? So when Reeve, and I'm obviously making words up here because I don't know if he did, but this is the way I would read this. So when Reeve saw this as a fast auction to the downside, you're now expecting a market make auction back towards at least this price here. And obviously that's how you're going to then look at it. So when you saw that and you see that the price didn't just reverse off of this point here, when it started to sell back into this point, Reeve took his shot. Reeve took his shot. And obviously, I would probably say that Reeve would have been really quite disappointed by the market down to the bottom edge here because it's not that good, is it? It wasn't the strongest, healthiest, toxic auction he's ever seen to the bottom edge. It's still a good auction. It's still a good auction. It's still a good narrative. And, when you see it, you can recognize the whole point of this is that trade there has an exact counterpart. If Reeve was to have bought in this location here, wouldn't it? It would have had exactly the same narrative if Reeve had bought here because of the fast auction off the bottom edge and then the hold in this area here. Because that's trade there, you would imagine that at least you're going to take out the swing high here at least and probably extend for the full auction. So the counterparty to that sell trade there would have been a buy trade here. Everybody agree with that? So we see this type of trade taking place. You might say, well, if that would be a buy trade there and a very high probability buy trade here, and this is a very high probability sell trade, why is Why is this not a high probability sell trade here? What do you think? Because it seems to accept below here. Why is that not a high probability sell then? If this is a high probability buy, and this is a high probability sell, why is that not a high probability sell? Anyone? We've got a failed auction above us. Well, there is a very simple reason why, and that is this a really toxic auction coming in here? Is this the kind of auction that stage one gives you a lot of confidence that the market's going to run a big run to the downside? Or is it a kind of crap auction? Well, to me, it looks as if there's 4 candles up and 4 candles down. Can you not agree? So we got 4 candles up there, and we got 4 candles down there, and you say, well, 4 candles up, 4 candles down. Okay, they're a wee bit bigger, but not by much. Not by much at all, right? You know, so when I look at that, I'm thinking to myself, it might be good, but I'm not sure if it is. Look at the difference between that sell auction there, right? So now you're comparing that sell auction there to this buy auction here, to this sell auction here. What do you see the difference between those 3 auctions? That sell auction looks like that. This buy auction looks like that. And this sell auction looks like that. Look at the difference between those. This is a market maker's auction balance. This is not. This is a market maker's auction balance. This is not. This isn't a market maker's auction balance, but it never took out that area there, did it? So you're looking at that saying, well, it's a pretty fast run up. If I had got a hold in this area here, I'm sure Reeve would probably have been looking at this and saying, well, you know what? I think we're probably going to auction all the way back up to the top edge at that stage. All the way back up to the top edge. You agree with that? Of course you would agree with that. It's exactly what you would be doing, right? Exactly what you would be doing. But that never happened because the price just reversed straight off this and we got almost a balanced auction back to the bottom edge again. But obviously you can see that the auction seems to still be sell side, especially on this candle here. And that's a fast auction from a lower price as it was here. So with a fast auction at a lower price, you're already starting to anticipate that this is going to be a market make, worst case, to the downside. 1422. So you're already looking at that as a worst case auction to the downside. And you're going to be looking at this trade here and saying, well, I think this is going to go from 11.5. The bottom edge here was 9.5, so that's only $2. So worst case scenario, this is going to go 7.5, isn't it? So worst case scenario, it's going to go 7.5. Well, it did, you know, obviously I've taken a screenshot of what Reeve posted, but you'll notice that the trade actually traded 4.5, right? The trade traded 4.5. So it went way past what the auction should be. And then it ran a big fast candle to the downside as a kind of frightener candle, and then the price went bid back into this kind of toxic area again, back into the 12s. And again, you've got another opportunity to look at that 12 and say, you know what, I'm going to work this as a sell. I'm going to maybe take a shot at this as a sell. So when we see this, it kind of makes a wee bit of sense, doesn't it? This fast and slow auction, depending upon what candle type you're using, can be very visible. Now, Reeve said he was using a excuse me, Reeve said he was using a volume chart, but you know, a volume chart or a delta chart doesn't actually make any difference. Because obviously if you've got a lot of volume and the price is moving, it's the same as if you've got a lot of delta and the price is moving. It's very, very difficult to get a lot of delta and no volume, isn't it? It's impossible. So delta and volume can be replaceable. Can be replaceable if you're struggling to trade this type of simple idea. I don't know if anybody liked it, but I bought a whole wad of 5-year notes. Something we talked about this morning, guys. Remember we had a conversation about this morning. Well, guess what I did? I thought I would show you this. But if you're ever wondering about getting liquidity, guys, You need not wonder any longer